All right. So assuming here we've got a low poly 3D character with our rig, with our texture, with all of our blend shapes that we want to be able to express with. And we've got this in Blender and we want to bring it into Warudo. That's specifically what we're looking into here. If you didn't want to export it into Warudo, you could export it as a VRM using the VRM for Blender plugin, which is specifically, let me go ahead and show this plugin. We've got the extensions or the add-ons here. The one that you would want is the VRM format plugin. If you go down to this add-ons in the preferences tab and you look for VRM format, that'll give you the ability to import and export VRM files. So yeah, if you're not looking for Warudo, you can use the VRM format to export and import VRMs, which is great for VR chat or like VC face. A lot of them use VRMs. The most robust support for Warudo is the Warudo file type, the .warudo file type. And that's what I'm going to show you how to make today. So to begin bringing our character from Blender into Unity, and then into Warudo after that, we're going to make sure that we've got only our character and the rig visible in Blender. We're going to select all of it. We're going to hit Control A to hit apply all transforms. What's up, Riz? I hope you're doing well. And once we've applied all the transformed, so all the scaling will be right throughout Unity and Warudo, we're going to select A again and select all. We're going to go from File, and then we're going to go File, Export, Export FBX. Now we've got this FBX for Unity export folder that I made. So I'm going to click into that. And then here under like the presets and the options for exporting our FBX file, we're going to hit limit to selected objects. And then we're going to hit apply scalings and we want FBX all. And we don't want to mess around with the forward or up. I often choose apply transform, and sometimes that, but I think we'll be fine with just the FBX all. Because we've applied all of our transforms before, it should be fine. We don't need to apply them here as well. And as you can see, this says experimental option, use at own risk, known to be broken with armatures and animations. So like, we don't need to use that here. We just need to make sure we've hit apply all for, or FBX all for apply scalings. And then we go down to armature and make sure that add leaf bones here is selected. It should default as selected, but it used to not. Make sure that on the version of the FBX file that you're making, it is selected. So now we've got Hilda v7 for export. I'm going to rename this file just for Unity, or maybe we even call this v7 test 1. Because this is the thing. This isn't your final version of this model. This is the first model that you're bringing into the tracking software. And often there will be some things that you want to tweak. Maybe you decide that you want your mouth to be bigger. Maybe your character is accidentally stuck in a permanent smile because of the way that you modeled it. Maybe they're in a permanent frown, or there's clipping issues that you didn't realize that there would be. You realize those things when you bring your character into the tracking software, into Warudo. And so you kind of go back and forth between Warudo, Unity, and Blender in this final step a few times usually to make sure that it's actually working the way that you want it to. So it's get comfortable with these steps because you'll often redo them a couple times. So I'm going to go ahead and hit export FBX and we'll save. And it exported no problem. So old cartoons have me thinking use at your own risk sound like it's going to electrocute you. Doesn't it? Doesn't it really sound like it's a big red button that you absolutely should not like press? It's like, why does this feel like it's going to actually do me physical harm? So once we've done that, we're good to hop into Unity. We're good on Blender. Just make sure you save your file. And let's go ahead and open up Unity. So the two things that you're going to need to do with Unity is you're going to need to make sure that you download the Unity install hub, which is just like the primary Unity installer. And then you're going to need to look for an old version of Unity. Specifically, I think it's a 2019 version of Unity that, or actually, it shows right here. It's 2021.3.18. So it's a 2021 version of Unity that you want to find off of the Unity archive on their site. When I upload this video on stream in the video description, I will put a link to the Warudo walkthrough of finding the exact Unity install version that you need for setting up a Warudo file, because you need two specific things. You need the Warudo mod file. It's called the Warudo mod SDK. And you need Unity 3.18 from 2021. So you can't be using like the most modern Unity for this. You need to go back to basically what they built all this tech out of. And from there, we will go ahead and build out our mod file. So the next thing that we're going to do is I've downloaded an untouched version of the Warudo mod SDK, which is basically like a project file. Imagine it's like a project preset. Yeah, the links will be there. They're very helpful, and it walks you through every step of the exact downloads that you need, and they'll do a clearer job with physical links and pictures better than I could do right now. So if you're watching this in the future, go ahead and find those links in the description below, and they'll have you covered for downloading and installing Unity, downloading the Warudo SDK. And then what you do is once you have that, once you've got Unity 3.18 installed and the Warudo mod SDK downloaded, you're going to go up here to projects where it says projects, and you're going to go to add. We're going to hit add project from disk, Unity Warudo SDK. And then I wrote this one. As you can tell, I have a few because I've messed around with different mods and stuff that I've created here for Warudo. And then I just named this one for stream. So that's one we're going to open right here. And then I'm just going to click that. And when it's the first time it's going to open, let me tell you, Unity files take a while to open. I have a fairly fast computer on a solid state hard drive. Unity files take a while. We'll be here for a few minutes as this opens because it's just, there's so many small files that it just has to read through a ton to get it to open that space. So if it feels like it's taking a long time for your Unity to open, that's very, very normal. Okay, so now this is what you'll see when you open the Warudo SDK. And you'll see up here it says Warudo SDK 0.12 modding project. That is exactly what you want to see. And then you'll see this little assets folder. You'll see packages, scenes, Warudo SDK. That's perfect. So what we want to do now is we want to open. So go to wherever you made your FBX file, and then you can go ahead and drag, or actually before we do that, before you drag your FBX into this, the thing that we want to do is we want to go up to this Warudo tab here in Unity, and we want to select new mod. And here we can set our mod name, and I'll call this Hilda FBX test. I always name the first one test, even if sometimes the test, it's like the Friday model that I actually use is just called test 3, Friday test 3, because I got it on the third time's the charm. You'll see once you make that asset, it created this extra folder here, and we're gonna go ahead and click into that, and that is where we're gonna drag our FBX. And you'll see it brings in this model that's got all of our materials here that are currently these shiny little orbs, and the kind of like model that you can see here. So there's a few things with this model selected down here in the left. We want to go ahead and go up to where it says model on the right. We want to choose turn on read and write. And we want to turn on legacy blend shape normals. That's basically making sure that your shape keys and your blend shapes are going to have the right lighting information. You're going to hit apply. to those. Then you're going to go up to this rig tab. You're going to go animation type humanoid and hit apply. And then go into configure here, and it'll bring up this new whole other little tab here. And just make sure that generally your bones are, like the bones of our rig that we created before, are on the right spot. The only one that I notice is always broken is the jaw. It always thinks a hair bone or the neck is the jaw. Just go ahead and delete that. Typically, if you're doing a VTuber model, you're not going to have a jawbone because you've made all of those shapes with blend shapes instead of rigging it to a bone. And then because we only have one finger, we don't have any of these other finger bones assigned. That's perfectly fine. You don't need to assign them to anything. And so now that we've got that jawbone deleted, so it doesn't think that the hair is our jaw, we'll go ahead and hit apply to that, and we'll hit done and bring us back to this like other scene. We go to materials, and then what you want to do is you want to choose you can do embedded materials or external materials. All this changes is whether or not your textures are here within your character or external outside of your character within this assets folder. I typically do external materials, and then you can hit apply and you'll see it's created this materials folder right here. And so then what I do is I go to the I will then drag Hilda up into this hierarchy tab that we see in the left, and you'll see Hilda has joined us in the world, but she's all white. Like, instead of having like the proper textures and shaders applied, she is just a weird marble statue. And that is because we need to assign our textures onto these materials. Right now, it doesn't know what to think that these materials are. It doesn't natively link the textures, the texture images that we created in Blender into the model. So all you have to do is wherever you saved your texture images, for me, it's a folder named textures, grab those images and drag them into this folder. And now you can see that we've got these 5 images and 5 materials. So we'll assign each image to a material. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about shaders. Shaders are these things that the most common VRM shader is called Mtoon. That's like the most like VR chat native shader. It's a fairly limited shader built for the VRM file format. It's like very flat toon shading is totally good on that. It can't really do any special like tricks, like tips or tricks. It can't do like a ton of glow or like, you know, the sparkle that we have on Momo's model wouldn't be possible in Mtoon. And Mtoon is the thing that if you need your model to be compatible with VR chat, I recommend you stick with Mtoon. Keep the more limited stuff. But the shader that I really like is called Poyomi. I'll go ahead and type it into chat. And it's a totally free shader, and you can just find it on GitHub. And if you download the Poyomi shader on GitHub, and then just, let's see, I've got it here as a Unity package file, then you can just drag it into Unity. I just dragged the package file into Unity, and this Unity file will now bring up this window and import the Poyomi shader into Unity. So it's basically this external kind of like package of information that we're importing into Unity. And it just takes a little while to import all those assets. So we just got to give it a second. It's basically a bunch of programming scripts that tell Unity and then Warudo how lighting should affect these images and these materials. So it's like this is how we should think and process lighting information in these different ways. And it's got all sorts of like math behind the scenes that makes that possible. And so generally, yeah, takes a little while to load it in. Again, it's just a lot of little files that it's processing for all of this stuff. And once it's set, we'll be able to actually assign our textures to our materials. But it really likes to think, especially while I'm streaming. I swear it doesn't normally feel like it takes this long, but sometimes, sometimes you get a little extra long. It just really, it's having a thought about it. It is funny just seeing it say busy for all this time. It's just like, okay, yeah, you're busy. You want to be less busy? You want to finish thinking about it, but I guess not. I've never had Unity actually freeze and crash on me. It's just sometimes it just takes a really long time. So patience is key. While we wait, you have additional soup info. You can buy a full gallon of Olive Garden soup for $30. Didn't you just tell me, like yesterday, that you can buy half a gallon for $20? You're telling me they give you the second whole, like half of that gallon for just $10 more? At that point, you're losing money by not getting the soup, you know? Okay, Koyomi, you've never taken this long to load before. You gotta. Yes, yeah, the computer is also running a lot just to stream. That's very true. We'll see how this goes. Great for events and families. That makes a ton of sense. Okay, so that worked. It says sharing violation on path, and then it'll give you a little info. That doesn't seem like an issue, honestly. So that's the funny thing about Unity is Unity. I mean, it is good to still. It is good to save. Thank you for throwing things to make sure I save. Unity will say already have this package because it's kind of editing itself live. But you'll need to save like a Unity, like basically an instance and like a timestamp of being like, this is the reference point for this Unity folder. So let me go ahead and just save this. We'll call this the Hilda texture or Hilda FBX to Warudo. Okay, so now we've got the Poyomi shaders installed. And the way that you'll be able to know that it's installed properly is if you go to shader up here where it says shader, you can click on it, and now we see Poyomi at the very top. So I'm going to set it to Poyomi Tune. There's honestly, if you want to know all the differences between like Poyomi Tune, Poyomi Grab Pass, Poyomi Tune Outline Early, 2-Pass, World, all that stuff, I highly recommend looking through the yes, what's up, Tune? Poyomi Tune, you're here. I highly recommend looking through Poyomi's documentation online, which is just like a huge PDF file of like how it processes all of the information for its shaders and like what the differences are. If you're that curious, I always just use Poyomi Tune. It's the most straightforward one. And now you'll see it's become, oh, hold on. Okay, yeah, it is having to think more because I'm streaming. And now it will open up this tab of colors and normals, and we're going to just drag the Hilda hair straight this like image. We're going to drag it into this little square next to texture. And you'll see it's brought in our hair texture. I'm going to do this with each other object. So I'm going to set them all to Poyomi Tune. And then I'll match all of the textures to all of the materials. So this last one was just the arms, which I accidentally didn't name properly. I didn't name the materials in Blender, which is why that one's just called Material 002, is because I did not name that properly in Blender. That's on me. I should have. And then let's add, apparently you can use the tracking from VTube Studio for Warudo at the same time. That's very cool. That's awesome. That's probably what it meant by like bringing info from the other software. That's handy. That seems like you could get some funky stuff with it, swap between 2D and 3D in fun ways. Okay, and then this one is the body. So let's go ahead and drag the body over. Let's drag the boots over. Always name your parts, people. It's true. Like Henry or David or Henry David Thoreau. You have a 3D tuber redeem plan. That's very fun. I know Gad does some stuff like that where he swaps between 2D and 3D depending on what redeems are happening. Doing a 2D like PNG, like change me to 2D would be pretty funny. And then this last one is just the head. So now we've got our base model, but like if we wanted to like add a little zazz, there's all sorts of things that we can do with the Poyomi shaders. Let me just take a little sip. So the things that you can really do in Poyomi turn you to 2D, but now you look all anime style, making me like a really a little razzle dazzle, exactly. Making me like a really over the top 2D anime character, making like me like a Bara 2D robot would be so funny. So here in the shading tab, you'll see the main thing here is shading, obviously. And you can choose if you want toon shading. I recommend keeping the or like cell shading. Recommend keeping the lighting type flat. But if you want slightly more realistic shading, slightly more dynamic and realistic shading, you can try out realistic and see what it looks like. It's going to make your shadows a lot more like naturalistic. See how it like immediately darkened the hair significantly? That's because real life doesn't reflect light super intensely. And so this is just a lot more realistic rendering of how much light is on the hair. So if you want, you can make your character more realistic, even if you have a low poly style. That can be kind of cool. And then you can add anisotropics, which I don't exactly know, but it's this kind of like extra layer of light, this kind of like sheen you can see. Let me actually move my character so you can see the thing that I'm talking about. You can see this kind of ball at the bottom. This is your material. And if you like turn this off, you can see like, oh, that ball just looks like, and if I turn shading back to flat, it's just this very natural flat look to it. Or just, like it's not adding artificial extra shadows. It's not adding like stuff that we're not telling it to. It's just sticking totally straight to the colors in the texture. Whereas if we add realistic, suddenly it's like taking extra shadow information from the directional lighting. And then anisotropics is like this level of like sheen and light. Some of the key things that you'll need to look at when messing around with this is mix base color. How much do you want the base color to be like reflected in the new lighting pass? I usually like to have that fairly high. And then mix light color. You can raise or reduce power, strength, mess around with all of these. Honestly, it's a lot of fun to mess around with different shading options and just like see what you can kind of come up with. That's how I came up with the Momo Glow, the little sparkle interface. Is like I was just messing around, and then I saw down here in special effects, it had this glitter and sparkle option. I was like, well, what's glitter and sparkle? And glitter and sparkle, we'll see it here too. And you can set the color to it and stuff, and you can set the size and the speed that it changes and stuff. So you can add this fun sparkle. It doesn't reflect in real time like it does in Warudo, because it's just like trying to not be too hard on your system, essentially. But you can mess around with all sorts of stuff. There's emission is another big part, where if you want it to glow, Like if you literally want it to emit light, you can add emission, and then like change it to like yellow, and then hit base colors, and like all of a sudden our model's gonna have like a glow to it. Yeah, I would just recommend mess around with your settings for everything as much as you like. I generally, I think especially for a low poly character like this, I'm gonna keep the lighting type to flat. I might add a slight level of emission on the hair. It's kind of fun and stylish. I like the brightness of the hair, but maybe it's more natural without it, if I'm being real. Because sometimes emission especially will just like create this excessive glow on your character when you add bloom into your scene in Warudo. That's a thing that I learned the hard way. Is I added a ton of emission onto Momo because I'm like, well, she's a fire, of course she's emitting light. And then when I first brought her into into Warudo in the scene, I was like blown out, like I was being hit by a Kamehameha in Dragon Ball Z because of like how bright I had made her emission. So keep the numbers kind of low. You want to generally be operating on in fairly small numbers. Some of the things that I really like is I like a tinted anisotropic light sometimes, but I like to make sure that I've got the mixed base color set to like 1 usually. And I like matte cap sometimes, depending on the material. Matte cap is almost like this extra shine. Again, you'll see it in this bottom right. Let's actually take off the anisotropic because I think that's going to make my character it's going to kind of blow out the shine. Let's add the base color mix and then a little bit of emission strength, just the tiniest little bit of emission strength on the matte cap. And then I usually like, if I've got a highlight color, I usually like to make it like a yellow. And then usually for blending, I'll do like mixed. Maybe a multiply if I feel like it's getting too bright. But you'll see it's also affecting the white of the mushroom caps. So you have to be a little careful when it's on different materials that have different color palettes to them. So I don't want that to get too white. So matte cap adds this little bit of like a sheen to it, just a little bit of light. Anisotropic adds this like, anisotropic maybe actually brings out brings too much attention to the fact that it's low poly. So we might want to lower that, though I do kind of like the light that it adds onto the mushroom. That's kind of fun. So maybe we leave that on, And this is just like, this is the fun, is you play around, you see what you like, you see what you don't like with the shader. There's no like one size fit all like stuff with any of this. Excuse me. And sometimes you'll bring it in to take a sippy. Sometimes you'll bring it into Warudo and be like, oops, this effect that I didn't realize was going to have this other effect in in Warudo when actual other lights are involved. Oh, got a Capri Sun right here. I'm so jealous. Capri Sun is so good. I mean, I haven't had one since I was like 9 years old, but I remember loving it. Sometimes you'll bring it into Warudo and realize that like, oh, this shader effect had a different effect than I actually thought it did. You got to go back and just adjust some things. It's iterative, So I'm going to go ahead and add color. We're going to add a slight color tint to this rim light. I really like rim light too, as like adding a little level of shine to this, especially to hair or anything that's supposed to be metallic. Adding a rim light is really satisfying, but usually I try and keep the sharpness. I try and not make it too excessive. So again, this is just, I'm going to lower the width so that the rim light isn't too strong. This is what it looks like with none. And if we add just a little bit, it adds just a little depth to the character that I think is fun. The rim light gives an almost gelatinous feel. Yeah, I think if you get too excessive with it, it can feel a little overwhelming. I like having it for like a little bit of a backlight kind of feel. But yeah, maybe actually for hair, maybe we actually want to leave it with none. So it still feels like it's kind of the same Like it's a proper texture instead of being too gooey. That's a good point, Ghost Kid. But hey, if you wanted something to look gooey, rim light and like if you want to create a slime texture and a slime shader using Poyomi, you could definitely do it. Works so well for the low poly. It reminds you of the Wobble Dogs. Nice. I don't remember I don't know if I've seen Wobble Dogs. Actually, no, I do. I think Roshan was playing that, and I hadn't seen it before, and they were like, "Oh my god, you'll love it!" And yeah, the design is super cute. I think something like actually, if we bring the sharpness all the way up, it might accent the low poly, but let's keep the width really low. Like that. I think that's very fun. And then it kind of changes by angle, so you want to just take a look. And then yeah, it's just kind of messing around with what you think looks cool for your character at any point. Different parts of your body will want different things, just like real life. And you can add a backlight, very similar to rim light, which is like this extra thing, like this extra level of light. I might skip the backlight because in my opinion, you don't want to add too many lights, because it'll just start to look like your character is overlit and lights are coming from all directions and it no longer makes sense where it's sitting in place and stuff. And so sometimes, like, less can be more. And I think it's important to remember that. Okay, so I generally like how the hair is looking here. Let's go ahead and I'll make sure that the face is also, we get like a nice look on the face as well. Oh, and when that is all set up, you want to make sure that you click lock in optimize shader, because when you export your mod from Unity into Warudo, if you don't have them locked in, the textures won't render out properly and everything will be pink. So you want to avoid that, obviously. So make sure you lock in your shader once you've finished adjusting it. So now we'll just go through these real quick and add some similar similar lighting. Maybe we actually tried doing, obviously this looks very cursed at the moment. So this is why you do mixed color base with because this is for the anisotropic, because this is what it looks like without. Yeah, way too much sunscreen. Did not rub it in at all. So sometimes for skin and stuff specifically, anisotropic can emphasize the level of like low polyness. Like it's bringing more attention to the individual planes because it's highlighting them more. You might want that, you might not. If you want to hide the fact that it's low poly, keep it turned off. If you want to emphasize the fact that it's low poly and make it feel extra PlayStation 1, maybe you want that on. We can adjust the tint as well. And I typically keep my tints for the lighting in the warmer range, the warmer colors. And you can also turn on stylized mode, which for stuff like this helps a lot. So instead of trying to be this very even lighting, you get this kind of like, it's a sharper, got more of an edge to it. I think that looks pretty decent, though it's a little weird on the cheek. So finding the right middle ground. I think that's pretty cute. It just brings a little bit of attention to the nose without being too obvious. Yeah, low poly, high charm. Exactly. Yeah, if you want it to feel extra PlayStation 1, it's true. If you want to, and because that's what a lot of people go for when they're making low poly models, they want that kind of nostalgic retro vibe, and that emphasizing the polygonal pattern with your shaders can really help with that. Let's go ahead and add Matte cap. I actually think we probably don't need a matte cap uh on the face. Matte cap is usually like this extra shine that's more for metal or shiny objects. That's why I have it on the hair, because I wanted the hair to have a bit of a shine. We don't really need it on the face. The face doesn't need that extra like metallic sheen to it. You can try and make it work by like cranking up the base color mix and like adding a color to it and, you know, mixing in the lights a little bit. But I don't know. You know, you'd have to really finesse with that. It's more for things that you want to look real shiny, which for us, that's the hair. We can still add the rim lighting, though. I think the rim lighting on the ears would look very cute. This, oh, sometimes, sometimes the way that it shows up is a little terrifying at first. So that defaulting to like bright white is like terrifying. Again, let's emphasize the mixed base color. And we'll keep the brightness relatively low on this. And for this, I think we want the sharpness actually really low. Yeah. Have it look a little softer. It is going to emphasize the lighting on the head, even though that should technically be in shadow because the hair. And that's because they are yeah, that was jump scare material. Because the hair and the head are separate textures or separate materials, that's why it's like, oh, the rim light here is like highlighting this part of the head that should technically be in shadow. So sometimes, especially with rim light, I like kind of leave it out on the body. Um, Anytime you have hair, you either want to like join it to the body at the end to avoid this if you really want it to have the extra lighting, or you just like leave out some of the like extra lighting steps. Which honestly, I think here we might just want to leave it out. I think it looks perfectly charming without that stuff. I don't feel like it needs it. Um, let's see what backlight looks like. The backlight, I think, might look a little nicer. We can make that a nice, like, kind of warm red, reddish hint and hue. Yeah, just so we get like a little highlight on the back of the ears. I think that looks cute. And that's not giving us the same issues that the rim light was. So that's perfect. Go ahead and lock that one. And then I think with the rest, I'm going to do something very similar. And since I actually want basically the exact same treatment on the hair or on the head that I did on that I'm going to do on like the boots and like the other material, what I can do is I can grab this shader. I can hit this little hamburger menu at the very top right here, this little 3 dots. I can hit copy material properties. Rim lighting jump scare. Thank you, Tune. Uh, and I can go ahead and copy that over into and paste that over into the boots. The thing that it's going to do is it's going to also copy the info as being the texture. So it's going to break the texture for just a second, but that's an easy fix. So as you can see, it broke the texture. But as long as we know we want the boots to be back in that texture slot, and we drag it back in, so it's taking a moment because it's really, oh, Unity's really thinking right now. Okay, I don't know why that broke for a second, but we drag the boots back over. Why is that breaking the whole thing? That should not happen. Okay. It was just really having to think about it. And now we've got this nice little backlight on the boot when we're not really looking at it, but we also, when we do look at it, we get the shadow again. Because of the way that backlight works with like the camera view. I think that looks pretty nice. And then we can go ahead and do the same thing on the body. Go ahead and paste that material in, and then bring over the body material. Try and unbreak it. This doesn't normally lag Unity so bad, but it is right now. Definitely because I'm streaming, so it's just extra CPU and GPU usage, I'm sure. So we'll lock in these. Yeah, it's saving as we go, but yeah. And then let's paste material properties here, and then we'll bring that that final thing is the arms. So let's just drag and drop the arms into this texture. Bring it in there. And there. We've got this nice little, like, just a little bit of backlight on the character that I think adds a lot of charm to the lighting without breaking the level of, like, toon shading that we got away with. It just looks like, oh, now there's one extra, like, we had already textured in shadows. Like, we had hand-painted shadows. Adding that backlighting and a little bit of anisotropic, I think often just creates this second sense of, like, oh, now we've got shadows and we've got light. So it gives that 3 steps of cell shading that I think usually looks really charming. Yeah, you don't need to go overboard. You don't need to, like, overly highlight everything, add tons of glitter and emission, and all of that stuff that I did for Momo. If you've got a very special effects focused character, it can be fun to do those things. But for the basics that we're just doing here, for just, like, getting used to your first character and all of that, I'd recommend keeping it fairly simple. I might even, once we bring it into, I might actually even get rid of this matte cap, because now the hair is maybe looking a little too bright, comparatively. And once we bring it into Warudo, and if you like the glitter, Beanie Bee, don't let me stop you. Add glitter to everything until your stream breaks. If you like the glitter. And actually, yeah, now that I know that we like the rim lighting instead, we like backlighting for this character instead of the rim light, I'll go ahead and make this the same thing, the hair. I'll add that rim light. Make it a nice, you know, like deep orange or deep yellow, or bright yellow rather than deep. That way it feels consistent across the characters. And generally, like, that 3 or 4 levels of color without being, like, too, it's like we got 1 level of highlight, 2 level of highlight, 3, and then 4 with the shadow. I feel like that's a sweet spot for, like, making a character look cell shaded without, like, getting overboard and, like, blowing things out with post processing. Because all of the shaders, if you do go crazy on the shaders, it will slow down and chug your system a little bit more. Yes, exactly. Get a powerful computer that can handle it, then push it to the limit. That's exactly true, Riz. Okay, so now we've got all of our locked shaders. Let me double check that everything's locked. Yes, it is. Great. So now we've got 2 more things. The first of those 2 things, yes, no worries. If you got work tomorrow, I understand. Then I'm sorry, but you are going to miss Jiggle physics, because that's what's up next. So, the way to do Jiggle physics, in my experience, this is the one paid plugin that I'm going to personally endorse during the process of this whole low poly model stream. Everything else has been free. The one paid plugin is Dynamic Bones. Yes, yeah, thanks for the raid, and thank you for sharing your art. Dynamic Bones is a $20, or at least it was $20 when I bought it off the Unity asset store. It's a $20 plugin that replaces a built-in asset called Spring Bones. Spring Bones is like what Unity comes with and what VRM models have support for. All of the tutorials I could find to try and learn and teach spring bones to myself were all like 6 years old, and I've not been able to get like any of them to work. So unfortunately, I like cannot do a good tutorial on spring bones because all of the stuff, all of the times that I've tried to teach it to myself off of old videos never work out right. They break, they don't like they just don't work. Um and so Dynamic Bones $20 plugin for Jiggle Physics. It's the price you pay for you look a little longer. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, have a wonderful night, Epo. The $20 is the price you pay if you want Jiggle Physics for your character. That's just the way it is. So once you've bought it, what you do, there's like a pop-up window that I'm looking for that I can't remember. Oh, here we go. Packet Manager. I knew it was under Windows. Windows Package Manager is what you go to. It'll bring up this new window, and it'll bring the assets that you've bought through the Unity Asset Package Store. And you'll see here it gives me the option for Dynamic Bone. And I'm just going to get it not hidden by myself. I'm going to hit this import button right here. Yeah, that's exactly what I'll do, Riz. I'll edit that in post. You never saw me struggling to find the window. And then we go ahead and hit import. And similar to the way that we just dragged the Poyomi package in, and then it brought all this data and kind of like extracted this package into Unity. That's what we just did there with Dynamic Bone. You'll see when we import Dynamic Bone, it says that there is like an issue. And it gives you this exact folder to look for. It's this Dynamic Bone demo file that we need to delete. Our Mushroom Mage we've named Hilda. Somebody said that in like the very first design stream of it, and then I just never bothered to come up with a different name, so now it's always been Hilda. So we want to go to Warudo packages, or sorry, the assets folder, packages, yes, Hilda. Packages, and then there should be a Dynamic Bone package here. Oh, it's the Dynamic Bone package here in assets. And we double click into demo, and then you delete this Dynamic Bone demo 1 file right here. And because I don't know why you have to do that, honestly. That's just, I know that it doesn't work if you don't delete that one file that's like basically using it from the demo. And so that's just an important step to do. And we've got to load all the materials. So that takes a little while. And while that happens, we will probably go on our 3-minute break. It's about to start in 30 seconds. And looking at how long this is taking, much longer than normal again because of the stream, just, taking some extra time. Yes, I will make some soothing tea. That's a great idea. Then I will, after the break, Jiggle Physics. Be prepared. It's just for the hair and the ears. We're not going to be freaks about it. Okay, so now that we've gotten rid of that little, like demo file, from Dynamic Bones, we'll be able to set up Dynamic Bones now with Hilda here. So what we can do is we've got the FBX file here, and I'm just going to make sure we're in the right folder. And here what we can do is we can add components. So Dynamic Bones is considered a component of like our model. And what I like to do is apply the components here on the armature. Specifically for Dynamic Bones, I think it's good to apply the components here. So what we want to do is hit Add Component. Now that we've got Dynamic Bone, and you'll see if you don't already have Dynamic Bone selected as like your last thing that you've created, you can just type it into the search box and it'll come up here. And yeah, no worries, bots. And if we hit Dynamic Bone, you'll see it pulls up this whole menu, right? And so what we want is we're actually going to want 3 instances of Dynamic Bone, because we want one for the right ear, one for the left ear, and one for the hair. So I'm going to add 3. You could add them, you could extend out this and actually add the components, and maybe for this specific instance where the hair and the ears are close to each other, this is actually, no, I'm going to keep it on the base armature. You could add it onto the specific bones, but I like to have them all 3 kind of close. So I'm going to add 3 dynamic bone components. And I'm going to go down in the armature, kind of getting to the neck, then the head, and then for one, this top one will make the hair jiggle physics. So I'm going to drag where it says bang.root, and I'm going to drag that into the root like option right here. So basically root is saying like where is the base of the jiggle physics starting? And damp, elasticity, stiffness, and inert, those are going to be the main things that we worry about when talking about dynamic bone physics. And they each kind of have their own thing. Damping is like how quickly does it stop? Elasticity is how quickly does it snap back to its original position? Stiffness is how much does it bend at all? And inert is how much does it drag before it starts to move? To just like give it a basic breakdown. So now that we've got dynamic bone there, we've got ear L. And now we'll do ear R01 for the last one. Now we've got all 3 dynamic bone components assigned with the roots. And now we can do something really silly where we hit play up in this. And this is a thing that confused me a lot. When I first hit play, is all of a sudden the camera went far away and I couldn't figure out how to move anything. What you want to do is when you hit play, it naturally changes to this game tab up here. You just want to click back on scene and suddenly you're back to where you were. And now you can see when we move the character with the root, Houston, we have jiggle physics. Maybe not the best jiggle physics, but we've got jiggle physics. Yeah, the jiggly mushroom, because it's part of the hair, it's going to be jiggly too. So what we can do now is we can click on the armature button. We can look at these dynamic bones here and it's like, okay, well, I think right now it's feeling too elastic, right? It's snapping back and it's not moving very much. So I probably want to move the stiffness, the damping, and the elasticity down actually. So like down from 0.1. Where else can those jiggle physics go? I mean, it's true. There's probably not enough mass on her. And now you'll see with the hair, or the one ear behaves wildly differently than the other. I'm going to argue too jiggly on that ear. So we can, it's the right ear. So we're going to turn the damping back up a little bit. And there's a little bit more sway there. You can see it's like less elastic. There's just a little bit more like sway and drag. Have a lore question. Is the mushroom really a hat or growing out of her head? I like to imagine that it's growing out. And I think the real question is who's in charge? Hilda or the mushroom? You know? So like, I like that for like a level of sway for the ears. Maybe a little bit more elastic. I always accidentally misclick. And honestly, subtle movements are often better tests of the character, or like even rotations. Because like you're going to be rotating your head a lot more than you're going to be like moving back and forth super quickly. Okay, maybe let's see what happens. So if we go super elastic, we like don't bend at all. So because you're almost snapping back so quickly that there's no drag. So I like like a little bit more than that. There's an Amphibia episode like that. I need to watch Amphibia. I've caught some episodes here and there, but it was after I had cable, so I never watched it all the way through. I think that's pretty cute. That's a good amount of sway. So, here's the thing, and then here is the thing with when you're in play mode, that's the only time that jiggle physics will show up. So if you're like moving your character after you've assigned the bones for your jiggle physics and you're like, why isn't it working? It's because you need to hit play, but you need to set your numbers in play mode and then write them down before you tab out of play mode. Because as soon as you go out of play mode, the numbers will revert back to whatever they were before. That's because, like, you know, Unity is built for game programs, and so there's all sorts of things that can like change variables within play mode. So they think like, oh, we want to have like character customization or things that can shift numbers. So we're not going to retain all of those as the default when in play mode, because it's used for like testing out your game. That can get a little annoying here. So I'm going to take a screenshot of these numbers that I think is pretty good. So yeah, got to write down the numbers or just do what I do, take a screenshot of the numbers. And then I'm also going to figure out the hair. Actually, I'll write down the numbers first before I go back into play mode and write down the hair. So now I'll assign it to both ears. So we have 0.148 for elasticity. We have 0.081 for stiffness. We have 0.021, and then 0 inert. Inert is really, I might put some inert on the hair if we want a little bit of drag, but you don't always need it. So I'm going to take those same numbers and apply them to this one, the other ear. So 0.148, 0.081, 0.021, and then I'll go ahead and go back into play, go back to the scene, and then when we move it around, the hairs have the same amount of jiggle. I think those look pretty cute for ears. Like, I think that's a good amount of like wobble for the ears. So let's go ahead and like figure out the amount of wobble we want for the hair as well. Again, we'll turn up the damping, turn down the elasticity. Maybe a little less stiffness. Okay, a little bit. I think a little bit more elasticity. It's a little too slow coming back. Hair is a little. I think that looks pretty good. That little bit of shake looks pretty cute. Maybe a little bit of inert. Let's see. Let's turn down the elasticity more. Maybe a little bit more elastic. There, I think that looks pretty cute. Back and forth is a little much. That's because it's clipping, so the clipping just looks weird. What if we lower the stiffness like all the way? Let's bring the stiffness up just a little bit. And again, this is just messing around to whatever looks good in the moment. I think that looks pretty nice. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, I love the jiggles. Exactly. So now I'm going to take a screenshot of those numbers. And when I go out of play mode, just write those down, because as you can see, they've reset back to 0.1. So we had 0.1 0.53. Yeah, she whips her hair back and forth. God, that makes me so old, right? Because when was that? That was like when I was like should probably go to bed too. Wish me good night. Thank you, Beanie B. Appreciate you for uh stopping by. I know your name is non Beanie B, and I'm calling you the opposite, so I'm calling you Beanie B, which is I would argue the opposite of a non Beanie B. But do you have a preferred name? B Beanie non 0.027, and then the inert. We do have a little bit of inert on this one. 0.097. And sometimes you can just round up on stuff. You don't always have to, though. Be your beanie, great. Um. Oh, I see. Being non-binary and all. You know, we love our trans and non-binary friends in this house. At the far shore, everyone is welcome. All sorts of people wash up on the far shore, and we are home to all. So you're very welcome here. Um. And now if we go back into play, let's take a little look, see how this goes. Yeah. Oh, that's actually maybe. Oh, that's too slow. I typed in a number wrong. Epo is 1-2. Well, everybody's welcome here. Okay, what is going on here? I typed in a number wrong. That is why you check your work. Okay, what number did I put in wrong? Oh, it's damping is 1. Damping should not is damping should be 0.153. Much less than 1. Yeah, the hair was damp. It was wet. There we go. And we could install, or like, so we could also then set up a collider within the head. So you can go to add component and add dynamic bone collider. And that would set it up. So if you raise it up, we want to raise it up on the Z, shrink it down. Oh, and actually, what we want, I believe, let's see, we want the height. There we go. And then just make sure it's kind of like taking up the mass of the face, like the mass of the head. Not too much, though. It's okay if there's a little bit of clipping. And then let's make it a little bit bigger. Ooh, not that's too much. You're operating in very small numbers here a lot of the time. And let's see if that works. I forget exactly what object you put the collider on because I don't often use colliders, honestly. Okay, yeah, I think I need to put the collider on the head itself so that the hair doesn't clip through it. Oh, I remember what you do. But yeah, we probably won't use a collider because that gets a little complicated with like advanced physics. See ya. We would go to like the head and then add an empty, create empty right here. And we call this like head collider. And this is where you would add the collider. Dynamic bone collider. And then you would want to make sure that it's the location and such that you want it to be. But yeah, we won't mess with that now. Maybe I'll do a collider video sometime in the future for like jiggle physics and stuff, but for now, it's a little advanced for like what this was ever supposed to be. And so now we've got jiggle physics. They clip a little bit, but that's okay. And we've got jiggle physics on the ears, we've got jiggle physics on the hair, we've got our rigged model, we've got the shaders all set up. Everything's ready to go. Now we just actually need to bring it into Warudo. So the way that we do this is when it's in an A pose, Warudo really wants everything to be in a T pose when it comes in. So there's a little bit of a trick here in Unity to snap your model into a T pose and make it work friendly. So I really recommend you save here. And then what I also recommend you do is once you've got all your components set up, and once you've got yes, exactly, save. Once you've got all your components set up, once you've got all of your materials and textures set up, duplicate your character with Control D up here in the top left. Duplicate them. We can turn off the top one. And what you want to do here is the one that says 1. We're going to go up to VRM. And what you're going to do is you're going to choose Freeze T-Pose. And you'll see now it's gone straight into a T-pose, and it's also created a second full object here called Hilda V7 Test Normalized. So we want to turn off the V7 Normalized again, and what we want to do is we want to duplicate this top one, the 1, a second time. Just trust me on this. If you don't do this, it breaks when you turn it into a character mod. So you just want to make sure that this is set up. So duplicate it one more time. So you've got Hilda V Test 2, the T-posed version, because you'll see that the normalized version and the test 1 are both in the T-pose. By creating that normalized version, you've forced this other model into a T-pose. That parentheses 1 is the one you want to create the second duplicate of after it's been normalized. So go ahead and turn that off. Make sure version 2 is the one you have selected. I know this is a little finicky to follow, but now what you're going to do is you're going to go up to Warudo and you're going to choose new mod. Even though we already made a mod, I really recommend setting up a second mod here just to avoid accidentally breaking the mod that we've set up so far. So I'm going to create new mod, and I'm going to name this mod name, and I'm going to name this Hilda Test 1 mod. The other one I called FBX. This is the one that I want to actually export, and we can set up the exact folder that we're putting it in. So I'm actually going to put the mod inside this other mod folder. It'll be fine. So if I hit create mod, you'll see now inside this, we've got the Hilda V7, we've got materials, and this other test 1 mod folder. So what you want to do now is, now that we've got that second mod, we want to switch active mod and make sure that Hilda test 1 mod is the one selected. That's exactly what we want. Now we want to go into Warudo. We want to go into setup character. And it should say has animator true, normalized bones false. That's correct. And you want to choose, make sure that your test 2, the T-posed one, is selected, and hit setup selected game object as character mod. And you should get this little pop-up saying, hey, this is where we've made our this is where we've made the character mod. And when you give it some time, the character that you see here in the bottom left in your panel should look like your actual character. That's a good sign that you've done it right. If it's just like showing a weird 3D model or like just says character and it looks blank, something went wrong in this process of normalizing and forcing it into a T-pose. You want to make sure that your character here looks like your character where it says character. I know that sounds silly, but that's how you know that things have gone right. So now we're going to, we've built the character mod, and we've set up the character with the Warudo mod, and now we're going to go to Warudo. Now we can hit build mod. But before we do that, actually, I'm going to go into mod settings. And here in mod settings, I'm going to name this Hilda Test 1. I'm going to name the mod author Faulty Friday. And you can give it a mod description. You can give it an icon. If you, low-key looks like Waluigi, that's so funny. Waluigi energy is how I'm trying to live every day. So you can like add your mod icon here. Like if you want to put this up on a store, it'll often pull from that. And then the thing is, you can choose your mod asset directory. That's the asset that's the directory we've been building all this out of. And then the mod export directory. This is the one where we need to go in to our C drive, and we need to choose program files. You need to go all the way in. You need to go to Steam, where you've got Warudo installed. You need to go to Steam apps. You need to go to Common, Warudo, Warudo data, streaming assets, characters. That is your Warudo character folder, most likely. And then you hit select file. This is where it is going to export the actual Warudo character into. And so now we've got it all set up. We've got our export setups. We've got our locked shaders. We've got our jiggle physics all set up. Theoretically, this should work. And I say theoretically because sometimes it's a complicated process. I'm not going to say it's not complicated. This is a technical thing that like things can have hiccups. And sometimes you just forget to like have selected a single switch and it'll break the character. It does happen, and you do sometimes spend some time figuring out what went wrong. It's happened to me when I was first learning. You know, go back, rewatch the video. I'll also have some links to some other tutorials that cover some of this. I'm trying to cover as much as I can in a single video, but there are smaller, shorter videos that handle individual parts. I'll link to those in the description as well once I edit this and upload it. So now we are ready to export. So we'll make sure that character is selected. We'll go to Warudo, and we will do build mod. We will save. And theoretically, it will work. Because I'm streaming, this is taking longer than it normally does too. But if it works, we will get a big sign that says build succeeded down in the bottom left, and it should open your character, your like Warudo character asset finder folder for you. And it did for me. So it looks like this is working. So, moment of truth, I'm now going to bring up Warudo, and here. Look, Mom, on TV. This is what Warudo looks like, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you're going to see some under the hood stuff here. This is why I needed to do a screen capture instead of just a program capture. It's because we're jumping around and you need to be able to see all of the different programs. So now obviously I've got all my different setups and redeems and props and stuff that we see here. I've got all this stuff for Momo and all of that. And let me open a new scene. I'm going to disappear for a second, but you'll still be able to hear me. We're going to call this Hilda test scene. Okay. So when you first open Warudo, this is what you'll see. I'm gone because I don't have Warudo open anymore. Basic setup, you'll want to hit get started. You'll see it says select a character. I've got a lot of test versions of characters, things that did or didn't work for me. Believe it or not, Friday Test 03 is the actual final version of Friday, not Friday V4, Friday V5. Those were me trying some things out. They did not work. I'm still trying to get around to them. So Hilda Test 1 is, I believe, our finished version. She's accidentally very big because I realized later I accidentally modeled her very large. She's tall. She's a tall girl. despite being short and stout. Hit OK, and then it'll ask you what kind of motion capture you want to use. I know that I use iFacial mocap, so I'm going to say, no, I know what I'm going to use. Otherwise, it'll give you some options. So yeah, I use ARKit, iFacial mocap. This is the most, it's the one that I just had the most success with when I was testing out different things, and having those 52 like additional blend shapes gives you a ton of like just tracking. And then for hand tracking, I use MediaPipe, which is through my webcam. And then so those are my two main ones. And here, let's see. It'll bring up this little MediaPipe tracker, and as you can see, it'll give you. And look, we're already tracking my hand, and it's working pretty well. Hi. And it'll show that. So now what I need to do is I usually have the background transparent. For now, we'll just keep the current background. We'll keep the blue sky. Actually, there's some stuff I can't show there. You will set up your personal iFacial mocap with your personal info, which usually has some IP related information. I know none of you are going to be crazy, but and then hey, look at this. Got face tracker and hand camera from the same camera? No, so I have my iPhone doing my face tracking, and then face tracking is happening through my webcam. So I had this old webcam that I was like not using, and then when I saw that you could do face tracking with it, and you know, I might need to make some adjustments to my hand because my thumb is kind of like it's actually looking pretty good. It's clipping a little bit, but you know, low poly stuff is going to do that. So, and as you can see, the face tracking is happening. Let me go ahead and hi. So now I've got I can calibrate all of these things. Yes, right? Not the voice you kind of imagine for all of this. And so once you get, I'm going to lower the bit so you don't see important information. I thought we couldn't do face tracking with a webcam. So no, I have my face tracking with that's what my iPhone is through. You can do some face tracking with your webcam. It's just not as robust. Actually, here, if I show you, I can set up. If I hit setup motion capture, it'll get rid of what I currently have, but that's fine because we haven't made any new adjustments. We do face tracking through OpenCFace, and I have it through my webcam. Set this up, and then I usually set this lip sync to always enabled. Set my microphone up so it's hearing my microphone, and then set on hybrid mode. And then I would do none for pose. And so now this is what it looks like without the additional blend shapes. It's still okay. It's just it's a little snappier. Oops. So here's the thing that I would need to fix is when I blink, my eye cuts through. So that's a thing. I'll need to push the eyes a little bit back in the model. And these are like the kind of things that you find out when you're bringing the model in for the first time, is you're like, oh, now that the eye tracking and there's some head clipping through the eyes a little bit actually too. Not too bad, but just a little bit. You can see it every once in a while. The hair kind of clips through the head in a way that's not ideal. You can adjust some of those things, and this is the reason I also like it doesn't look too bad, and as long as I keep it's just more so the lip sync is fairly limited, and like same with like as you can see, I can't like squint. I can squint a little bit, and I can squint like with my eyebrow. I can't lower my eyebrows because that's not a thing that that's not a thing that webcam tracking is capable of doing. So that's one of those things where you're just like, oh, there's some limitations with the expressiveness, in my opinion, of that. for 3D models especially. It's like, oh, if you're taking the extra, would you need to do all this setup again with an updated model? So you would need to do some of it. You would need to you can copy and paste all the shader data as long as you haven't changed any of the textures and that stuff. Like you can just copy and paste those materials from one file into another, or because you can build that Warudo. You could build a new mod, like a new Warudo mod in that same Unity folder that you built. Like if let's go back into Unity for a second, and like let's say I made a new version of Hilda, and that's why I said Hilda FBX test. I could make a new folder here and do Hilda, like I would do like create new folder, Hilda, like FBX test 2, and then just bring the new FBX in here. But then I could bring the materials that I already set up into that new test and just make sure that those materials are assigned. So I wouldn't need to do like redo any of the shader setup. And as far as the jiggle physics, you can go to the component. Like if we click on this rig, you can see that there is an option to copy component. So you can copy and paste the components for the jiggle physics as well. So you just need to transfer the info to the new model that you had, but you don't need to reset it all up from scratch, right? You can copy and paste most of the materials and all the jiggle physics. So it streamlines that significantly when you already have what you want and are just like fixing something about the model, like pushing the eyes back a little bit. That helps a ton. It's not that hard. But you do need to redo this little bit where you made the 3 different versions and normalize it. That you do have to redo. You have to redo the export. So there's a little bit of back and forth with that. It's not, it can be a little time consuming, but luckily those most repetitive bits like the shaders or like the most time consuming bits like setting up all the shaders to look good and setting up the jiggle physics don't take, like you can just copy and paste that. So that doesn't take too much extra time. So let's go back into Warudo. And yeah, so we have, a little bit of tracking here. My webcam is far away from me, specifically for the hand tracking. So that's part of why it's not picking up very much when it tracks me like this, is because my webcam is pretty far away. It's picking up head rotation pretty decently, but not lip sync and stuff, like unless I really face it. And so that's part of why I don't love the webcam tracking as well as is just because it's like, it's just a little stiff comparatively from when I was testing stuff out. Not that it's impossible to use, but you just have to plan around that. Like maybe setting the squint to also lower your eyebrows when you're setting up your shape keys. That would help. Or like when you blink, setting that so that it lowers your eyebrows as well. That could be very helpful if you want to be a little bit more expressive. And then it just like, unless I really stare at the camera and set up, we can then go into calibrate OpenC face, and we can go into lip sync settings like here. And you'll see here, there's like a set of like, okay, here are the blend shapes that we have. What's the volume threshold for like what it's hearing and how it's making those shapes. Like, and so you can get kind of into the weeds here, and you can see the current volume of everything and how everything is assigned. And you can make sure that your blend shapes are named properly. Like I actually have, I think some of these are actually named improperly for me. Like if I set the eye, like let's set, I think E, we get that. We get clearly. Oh, ooh. So ooh is not set properly. I think I have ooh set to ooh, like OU. Ooh. So making sure that all of those are set and then trying to really emphasize your pronunciation helps too. And then you can adjust your sensitivity using these nodes. as well. Like setting the weight higher will make the blend shapes a little bit more exaggerated typically. And so yeah, you can start and you can see if OpenC face tracking is right for you. You can see there's other options too. Like if I set up motion capture, there's also media pipe, which I've heard. Yes, got to get the uwoos appropriate. Yeah, so there's media pipe as well. We can try and set up media pipe. And now we've got a media pipe tracking set up, which doesn't seem like it's actually responding all that well. There we go. Now it's starting. So I found media pipe to be a little bit better than OpenC face, which is what VC face is OpenC face. But like media pipe, it's still not a ton of like, you really have to push the lip sync, and you can try and like push that a little farther by like adding to the global blend shape sensitivity. Like I usually make that really big so that it, especially if you're using webcam tracking, to try and get the lip sync to read as big as possible. Because I think a lot of times they make the lip sync way too small. And that's an issue that I personally have with a lot of VTubers. You can also, if you feel like your body's moving too much for how much you're moving your head, you can turn down the movement intensity, the rotation intensity. You know, you can limit some of that. But it really comes down to how much you want to move around, how much jiggle and expression. The jiggle physics are what's creating that little dangly thing. Why are her eyes doing the chameleon thing? Oh, where they're kind of bouncing around in her face. So I think that is because we have the eyes set up on bones, and right now it says use bones for eye movement. So if we don't have the eyes set to bone movement, they'll be a little bit more stable. That's another thing that you can smooth out if you're using eye facial tracking. And it's also a thing of like my angle and lighting. In my opinion, your angle and your lighting have to be way better if you're using a webcam tracker, because the webcam is picking up so much less information that every little bit of information can get interpreted wildly differently. So turning off bones for eye movement can really help limit that. Whereas if you want really expressive eyes, turning on bone for eye movements, but then you can also average eye rotations. You can then turn on blend shapes, which then will like limit. That'll like pair blend shapes with what you're like wherever you're looking. I tend to use one or the other, using blend shapes or bone eyes. Not both. Both gets really excessive. Oh, hey, you can see MediaPipe is able to read my lowered eyebrow better than they're able to read some of the ARKit facial tracking. That's great. Whereas OpenC Face couldn't read that at all. So I would definitely say if you're gonna use and it can read some of the squints. Though still I have to push the eye back a little bit. I would say if you're gonna use webcam tracking, it seems like Media Pipe Tracker is much better than OpenC Face. The thing that I like personally, and that I use as Friday, is set up motion capture. I use iFacial mocap, like I've mentioned before, and I have to bring this off screen to set up because it requires some info regarding your local IP address and port information. But once you've got it set up, I find this to just be like the best combo of subtle but also expressive. It is, it requires an iPhone or an iPad, and it's $6, whereas the others you just need a webcam. So it is, I already had these things and then just got the $6 app and found that just fit my needs a lot better. You can set your global blend shape sensitivity like this if you really want really express it. If you want to really overshoot with your mouth, you can set it to 2 and go crazy and it breaks everything. But I usually have it more like 1.2 maybe. And then you can go into configure blend shape mapping and it pulls up this where it's like, oh, you can set all sorts of things. Like you can set how much, how sensitive. Let me find a good example. The mouth open. These are the 52 blend shapes. And if you go to, let's see. Where's my mouth open? Jaw open. Here we go. So here is me opening my jaw all the way that I physically can. And I'm able to get my jaw open to where it reads as 100%, but sometimes you can't. Like, so, let's say you're trying to open your jaw as much as possible for your model, and it only reads it as like, and so you're only able to get to 0.4, but you wish that your model was more expressive. If you change this input maximum to 0.4, then when you're at 0.4, it'll treat it like you're actually at 1. So I'm only having my mouth open halfway right now. And so that's actually really helpful. I do it less for jaw open and more for things like eye wide. Like I'm opening my eyes as wide as I can right now, and it's still only reading it as 0.5. So if I want to make sure that my model is being as expressive as possible, I would set the maximum input to 0.5. And now it's reading it way closer to a full output. And that just helps you be a little bit more expressive with your model, is by honing in on some of these things, setting what your maximum inputs and maximum outputs. Like, let's also say, like, you've got something that's like actually breaking, like one of your mouth shapes is like you don't want to be able to like frown so big. It's like you can lower or you can actually raise this and then it won't output so big. So each person's face and how they express is a little different. So you're going to, mileage may vary on what blend shapes you need to increase or decrease to get it to look the way you want. But like overall, I would probably make some adjustments where I try and move her eye socket a little bit away from her hair, the inside of her head, to make sure that we're not getting that little hair clip right there. Like, just because that's going to like happen a lot. So I would try and fix that. And then I would try and, I'm just looking at other things. I would definitely fix the blink. It's not so bad with the facial mocap. But if I was using that webcam webcam tracking and it was clipping constantly through the eye like it was, like we saw before, like we got a little bit there. If I really turn while winking, it really happens. So I could just push the eye back a little bit and fix that. And so especially the first time I bring a character into Warudo, I expect there to be like things to break and things that I'm going to need to fix with the model. It's usually not first export like proper, like perfect like thing. And then look, we've got our, I can give you a little thumbs up, which this is how, so the thumbs up is a little wonky. Maybe I would need to adjust some of that too. There we go. Yeah, that thumb is a little wonky. I might need to adjust how the bones are rolling in there. Yes, breaking is part of perfecting. You're trying to break the stuff and making sure that it like works. Like if I made a model for someone, like if somebody commissioned any of this from me, this would be one of the things that I do, is like bring it into the software and actually make sure that it's working properly. So it's like, oh, I see that. I can now go in and adjust the bone roll on the model on the thumb to make that read a little bit better. That would be something I make sure I try and do to make sure that the top of the thumb is a little bit better. But let's say you got a model and you have everything working, but the thumb is just a little bit, the thumb's just a little bit too far forward. It's just like kind of always going a little too far forward for how you want it to look. What you can do is you can go into your character model like this, where it just says character 1, scroll down to it is, scroll down to, here we go, animation, and you can where it says here additional bone offsets, you can add this element, and if I go down and I select the bone from my thumb, which we know for this is my right thumb, and I think it's my distal bone that's offset. So I can like tweak my bone here, like rotate it, and now it's like behaving a little bit closer to what I want it to look like. And you can see how it's moving. It's like changing. Let me actually see if, so you can make some tweaks there to like change how you want your bone to like be tracked. Yeah, just casually resetting your bones in your hand. Yeah, and so it's like this too, it's like when I go full body, like, oh, my arms are just like clipping through my hand because of the way that just like my hips are wider than my shoulders in this character, and that's just naturally how Warudo is going to try and snap things into place. So what I usually do with a character is I go into these bone offsets and I go up to the shoulder, left shoulder, and we just are going to rotate it along the Z just a little bit, just like -12. And then we'll do the same thing for the right shoulder. And we'll put that into the positive. And then now we've got a much more like, you know, not clipping set right there. Like set of bones. A much more natural, like casual position. And we could even do the lower arm if we're like, oh, now it looks like the arms are too stiff. They're stiff like boards. We could even go into like the lower arm, like left lower arm, and now make that like lean into the body. So it seems really casual. And then same thing with the right lower arm. It's like now that's a way more casual look, just hands to the side, normal. And there we go. Let's see. There's some other fun things we can do. Like Warudo comes set with all these like base animations. And I think you know, if you do you can pull up this little preview window and you can do things like this. And sometimes you will get clipping issues, and then you just use the bone offset tool that we have that I just showed you to like fix the exact like look of your individual bones in case you want something to look a little different than like what their default model are. It usually happens right around the hands and the face because their natural like default model has very small hands, and so it's easier for them to not clip through. It's a great set, and this is where all the, if you've wondered where the dances I have come from, these are like default Warudo dances. And so if you really wanted a lot of these dances to work well, you could definitely set up that dynamic bone collider, you know, so that the hair wouldn't like bounce through the skull quite so much. That would be definitely worth taking the time to set up. Colliders get a little finicky, but maybe someday if there's interest, I can set up another tutorial. Oh my gosh, look at this with the robot. Yeah, Warudo is great, and there's all sorts of things that you can do too. Like you can import props into Warudo, and you can even make your own props. So if I had that wizard staff, that we designed with her, I could import that as a prop, and then set it up so that it's like emitting particles and stuff. It's a pretty powerful like program, and there's lots that you can do with it. So yeah, that's actually the whole process. I am, I think that's it. I think we've done the whole dang thing, of bringing a character from Blender. You know, then I would make those tweaks where uh, I go into Blender, tweak the eyes, and change some of those. But you can tell where I get all of my poses for my screenshots and stuff, right? Is you get all these fun poses to work with, and it's just like playing. Like at a certain point, you're just like playing with an action figure in a fun way. And yeah, I think that's the whole thing. I think we've done it. I think we've completed Waifu Wednesdays. I'm glad that it's been very informative. I almost said performative, which has kind of been as well. If you want some JoJo's, but yeah, and then it's like, oh, I like this pose, but I want to make sure that that the lower arm isn't clipping through the face now, so we can like make sure that that's offset. Oh, it needs to be the right lower arm. You can do something like that to get the clipping to work. Okay, so we're about to hit ads in a moment. Thank you all so much for joining me for Waifu Wednesdays. This has been a delight. I will be back on Friday evening with Momo to play some Dispatch. And I hope to see you all there. And then next week, we're going to be back into art. We're going to be doing some storyboards. I think it's time to actually kick off into high gear. Yeah, I'm so glad that people learned. I'm really, really happy that this has seemed to like really click with people. So I think it's time we raid out before you get smacked by the ads, because that seems like weird. So I see Erica is streaming some Pokopia, and so let's go ahead and raid on into her. I hope she's having a good day. And yeah, excited for more game, excited for more Dispatch Friday at 8. Oh goodness, the ads are coming for us. Let's run away into the pigeon raid.